Tim Walz and JD Vance went head-to-head in their first ever vice presidential debate, broadcast live on CBS. The debate was praised for being much more substantive than the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump just last month, with a much deeper dive into policy issues rather than personal jabs, which characterized the Harris-Trump debate. But it was ultimately JD Vance's confidence in debating, knowledge of policy, and slick presentation that won him the night. Even leftist media like CNN were forced to admit Tim Walz lost the debate.
I think there was a clear lack of preparation and execution here on Walz's part.
I think actually it's the opposite. I think he had too much preparation.
Maybe, yeah.
He had so many lines that he was clearly trying to say that he didn't listen and said when J.D. Vance said one of the many things he really hit Kamala Harris on, not Tim Walz, but Kamala Harris, he didn't respond because he clearly had things in his mind. I think the lack of interviews that he has done with national media, with local media, it showed. He needed more reps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
MSNBC's Rachel Maddow was less generous with her praise, admitting that Vance was slicker, but Walz had a stronger grasp on policy.
A cordial debate between these two men. I wouldn't describe them as evenly matched because they are so different. So different in style and so different on substance. Very interested to hear from the spin room, to hear from all of my colleagues here, to get to all of the analysis that we're going to get to. I think the big picture takeaway from this is that one of these candidates is much slicker than the other, is a much more practiced kind of professional debate style speaker, and the other candidate won. There was one bad moment for Tim Walz in this debate where he got mixed up and embarrassed in answering a question about exactly what month he had been in China in relation to the Tiananmen Square protest. But then on guns, on January 6th, on Obamacare, on the economy, on blaming everything on the border, back again on healthcare, on abortion, on every issue on substance, J.D. Vance was very polished and very slick, and Tim Walz beat him on all the substantive points. At least that was my take on it.
J.D. Vance made the unprecedented move of pushing back against the fact-checking of the moderators, which is what many berated Donald Trump for failing to do during his presidential debate. Many commentators applauded this, with this commentator saying, "Just now, CBS moderators fact-checked JD Vance and refused to let him fully respond and eventually cut his mic." But this MSNBC host had a different take, accusing JD Vance of mansplaining the all-female moderators.
Like muting powers. And I actually think if you're a woman, that might be the worst moment J.D. Vance had, because he was going to mansplain right over that mute button. He was, and again, I don't pretend to know how everyone will react to this. I think that a lot of women in positions of authority that should command respect just by virtue of that dynamic will see themselves in some dude that disrespected them and talked over. I mean, there was a moment like that with then vice presidential in the Harris Pence debate.
The ABC was also forced to admit Vance's victory after a Democrat strategist said Vance performed better on the night.
One Democratic strategist in a battleground state was actually very critical of Walz's performance tonight, telling us Vance is much better at this than Walz. I don't think it matters much, and there's good moments for both sides, but if I have a frustration, is that I don't know what Walz's strategy was tonight. He said his advice to him would have been, you have one job. Goad Trump into debating the VP again. Let it rip.
And more of the leftist media seem to be turning on the Democrats, with CNN's Jake Tapper calling out the Harris-Walz campaign for their lack of public-facing interviews.
I've interviewed you more this week than I've interviewed the entire Democratic ticket this year, but that's a separate issue.
Okay, but the Democratic ticket has not been the Democratic ticket for very long.
Make them all three of them. So make it all three.
MSNBC's Jen Psaki also came out against Walz, saying Vance seemed reasonable and Walz was missing magic.
Look, I felt that if you're sitting at home and you were watching and you were not fact-checking and you weren't familiar with what J.D. Vance had said previously or what Donald Trump stood for, he seemed at many moments to be reasonable.
Yeah.
And that was clearly a change in tone. And I know you all were talking about the strategic shift there. That was interesting to watch. Watching Tim Walz, what I thought about was when he emerged onto the scene, we all probably interviewed him 5 times during Veep Stakes. He propelled himself single-handedly into Veep Stakes, right? He became the running mate because of their chemistry, but also because he was so effective at connecting people authentically and organically on television. He's been absent. I think that's a huge mistake to hold him back and not put him out there.
Meaning he hasn't been on the media.
He hasn't been out in the media for a while. He's been absent. I do think that's a missed opportunity. But tonight, I felt like he was spending a lot of time in the first half or 2/3 proving he read the briefing materials.
ABC's Lindsay Davis slammed Walz with a major insult, likening his performance to Joe Biden's debate performance against Trump.
It kind of reminded me of the June 27th debate when Kamala Harris that night said of Joe Biden, it was a slow start, but a strong finish. And that's how I felt that Tim Walz kind of did tonight. You know, to use Tim Walz's own words, I mean, a lot about this debate tonight was weird. There were uncomfortable, cringy moments. But overall, I think my takeaway was something that Reince Priebus said on the outset, which was that JD Vance needed to come away as that humble, likable guy from Hillbilly Elegy. It seemed like he did perhaps get some points in that area.
But not everyone on the left was ready to admit defeat. MSNBC's Nicole Wallace had an epic meltdown over JD Vance.
It's the audacity. I agree with you that we're in year 9 and no one knows how to cover the audacity. The audacity is that someone should have said, stop it, stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right? I mean, they should have just, this is the debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.